Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott Selections here for Saturday, June 8th. Before we get into the play of the day, we'll quickly recap what happened yesterday, as we ended up picking up an unfortunate loss with the White Sox money line at plus 110. They were up 2-0 early. They were up 2-1 after 6. And then after that, the floodgates opened as Kansas City scored 3 runs, take a 4-2 lead. The White Sox came back, and then for some reason they decided to pitch to Mondesi with the base open, and they got burned as they ended up giving up another 2 runs, and they ended up losing that one by a score of 6-4. Unfortunate. I still think there was definitely value on the White Sox, but it's always not nice to get those close games and those bounces to not go in your favor. But with that being said, the play of the day is actually going to be something relatively unique. And a large reason why this will be the play of the day is the fact that I'm actually going to be going to it later today. But the Belmont Stakes in horse racing are today, and I'm going. So I'm going for the third straight year of, my friend and I turned into a tradition. We saw Justify win the Triple Crown last year, but this year is definitely not as eventful as you've had separate winners for the Kentucky and the Preakness, which means there is no Triple Crown hopeful for this year. But in terms of the race itself, I definitely think that Tacitus is the best horse in the actual race. And for that reason, the play of the day will be Tacitus winning the Kentucky Derby at plus 175. And that is available at multiple books, including Five Dimes and Bovada, at that exact price of plus 175. So use whatever book you want to use. In terms of a breakdown for the race itself, War of Will and Tacitus, I think this is a 2-horse race for me, where Tacitus, out of all the horses that are running in the Belmont, did the best in the Kentucky Derby, whereas War of Will ended up actually winning the Preakness, but War of Will won when none of the horses who pretty much were, and who were most of the horses from the Kentucky just simply didn't go in the Preakness, and War of Will ended up beating a very dilapidated field. I think Tacitus is better than War of Will in terms of horses. Tacitus, I believe, came in 4th in the Kentucky, and I actually had money on Improbable and a matchup prop and ended up losing by a millimeter. So I do know that Tacitus does tend to do better with the late distances, as he was making up some serious deficit in the last stretch. But the Belmont is also longer by a decent portion than the Preakness and the Kentucky. So I think the extra length will actually do Tacitus some benefits. I think the Tacitus will start out slow, and then I think he'll pick it up late by the straightaway. So for me, I think Tacitus at plus 175 is good value. I expect money to come in on Tacitus. In terms of other horses here, War of Will is okay. I don't think War of Will is that great of a horse. Bourbon War I like, but it was definitely underwhelming in the Kentucky. Overall, I just think that this is a 2-horse race, and I think Tacitus is significantly better than the rest of the competition. So I think at plus 175, there is good value there. And with that being said, that will be the play of the day. Now we're going to dive into the rest of the betting card. You have a doubleheader between the Rangers and Oakland, I believe. I believe there's a doubleheader there. Yes, it is. And the first game will be between Blackburn and Palumbo. I like the over 11.5 here. Both pitchers definitely are huge question marks, and both lineups are solid. We were right about the lean yesterday to the under, but these pitchers are significantly worse, so I will lean to the over 11.5 there. Moving on, you have the White Sox and the Royals. I lean to the first 5 under between these two teams. Giolito has been pretty solid. Keller, after getting rocked by the White Sox earlier this year, how's it going, Terry? Thanks for joining us. Has actually looked okay recently, and I don't really like either lineup. The only question is if the bullpens are going to choke another game away. If you had the under yesterday with the under 10, then you suffered a pretty brutal push as you had 2 runs in the 6th inning, or 3 runs in the 6th inning, or going into the 6th inning, and then the whole game opened up due to the bullpens. I think that both offenses will struggle in the first 5. I'll lean to the under in the first 5 there. Moving on, we were right about the Diamondbacks against Toronto. You have Sanchez versus Greinke. I obviously am leaning to Greinke here. Blue Jays just aren't that great of a team, and Greinke's been fantastic this season. So I think the Diamondbacks should get the job done. Moving on, you have the Phillies versus the Reds with Pivetta and Rourke. I like the over 9 here. I don't like Pivetta. I don't like Rourke, and I definitely don't like either team's bullpen. Lean to the over 9 there. Moving on, you have the Brewers versus the Pirates. We were right about the over yesterday with that game. I lean to the Brewers here in this one also. Zach Davies actually had a very solid year, underratedly. Jordan Lyles have been pretty good, but the Brewers are the better team, and they're in Miller Park, so I'll lean to the Brewers there. Moving on, you have the Yankees and the Indians with Plutko versus Sabathia. I lean to the Indians here. Yankees are currently not playing well. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Plutko's okay. I'm not the biggest Sabathia guy, and I think that the Indians should win that game, so I'm going to lean to the Indians on that one. Moving on, you have the Astros versus the Orioles with Cashner versus Valdez. I lean to the over 9 there. I think this game should have more runs. We leaned to the over yesterday. That ended up losing. But overall, I definitely still like the over. Valdez is inconsistent. Cashner hasn't been great this season. And both teams still have decent enough lineups to generate 9 total runs. Lean to the over there. Moving on, you have the Braves versus the Marlins with Tehran versus Richards. Still lean to the over 7.5 in that one. Richards been pretty solid this season along with Tehran. But the Braves' offense is currently playing really well, and Tehran has had control issues in the past. I think the Marlins should score a couple. I think this game could end up somewhere in the realm of 6-3, so I'll lean to the over 7.5 there. Moving on, I lean to the over 9.5 between the Twins and the Tigers with Gibson versus Buck Farmer. Not a big fan of either pitcher. I think there should be a decent amount of runs, so lean to the over there. In terms of the second game of the doubleheader between the Rays and the Red Sox, I don't know who's pitching for Tampa. I know that David Price will be pitching, and there are no lines out for that game, so I will be skipping that one. Moving on, you have the Dodgers versus the Giants with Rich Hill versus Jeff Samardzija. I lean to the under 8.5 here. Hill's been very solid this season. Samardzija's been serviceable, definitely better than he was last year. Giants got a very impressive win against Kershaw yesterday, but overall, I'm going to have to lean to the under. It is in, Giants still have home field. Giants are awful at home field, but that does mean it's a bigger ballpark. Should be tougher to score runs. And I like the way Hill's been pitching. I will lean to the under 8.5. Moving on, you have the Mets and Rockies. We did lean to the under in that one correctly, as that game ended up at 5-1. I said it should have ended 4-2, but either or, you ended up getting 6 total runs. In terms of that game, I'll still lean to the under 8, and I will lean to the small lean to the Rockies, as I've liked the way they've played lately. But I'll lean to the under 8. I think both lineups will struggle again. I think Matz and Gray have been okay this season, but Mets lineup was completely a no-show yesterday. Gray's been okay this year. Matz been good enough. I'll lean to the under 8. Moving on, you have the Cubs and the Cardinals. I lean to the over 7.5 there with Flaherty and Lester. Flaherty's been decent this year, but he's been better at home than he has been on the road. And Lester has definitely been underwhelming, to say the least, this season. 7.5 is too low of a total. I lean to the over there. Moving on, you have game 2 of the doubleheader between the A's and the Rangers with Bassett versus Sampson. I'll lean to the under 10.5 there, very small lean. Bassett's actually been pretty decent this year. Sampson's been okay. I think that game 1 will have a lot of runs. I think game 2 will have less. So I'll lean to the under 10.5 there in game 2. Moving on, you have the Mariners and the Angels with Peters versus Kikuchi. I will lean to the over 9 there. In terms of both pitchers, they've been inconsistent. Both lefties, both teams have decent right-handed bats in the lineup. I think each team should score at least 4 or 5 runs. I'll lean to the over 9 there. And the last game, you have Scherzer and the Nationals versus the Padres and Lauer. And in terms of that game, a lot of money's coming on the Nationals. Makes a lot of sense. I'll lean to the full game over 7, though. Scherzer's great, but I expect him to go roughly 7 innings, and I don't like the Nationals' bullpen for 2 innings, and I definitely don't like the way the Padres have played in the last couple of games or so. Yep, Scott, the play of the day we're actually going to be going with for the Belmont, it's mostly just because I'm going to the event, so I'm just going to be betting on it. So my racing knowledge, I've bet on horses in the past, but I wouldn't say it's great knowledge, but in terms of my general thoughts for the Belmont, I'm taking Tacitus to win at plus 175. I think that Tacitus is just the best horse in the actual race. And at plus 175, I think that's a steal. I would not be surprised to see that line go down to a roughly 6-5 or so right before the opening gun. So for me, Scott, the play of the day will be on Tacitus on the money line or Tacitus winning the race at plus 175, and that line is available at 5 dimes and Bovada. Both have it at the same price. Now, with that being said, there are no basketball or hockey games today, But props to the Raptors for going up 3-1 in that series. Seems like the Warriors' only hope will be if Durant comes back, but even if he does, he'll clearly not be at 100%. This Raptors team is stacked, and as a Nets fan, I definitely hope that Kawhi, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm hoping for. I hope he leaves Toronto, but I think realistically, I think he's going to be there for a long time as he has a chance to win a championship in his first season with the organization. Yep, Scott, I've actually gone for the last 2 years. I saw a Triple Crown last year with Justify. Good times, but it'll definitely be nice going back. With that being said, though, quick reminder of our sponsor, PointsBet, online sportsbook in New Jersey. They have a couple of great deals for you, up to 2 risk-free bets of up to $1,000. So if you end up losing one of your 2 big plays for $1,000, you get your money back. And they also have some deals for the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, but I'll not go into those as the fact that there are no games today. But with that being said, that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here for Saturday, June 8th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.